My name is Javan. I'm an organizer with Service Employees International Union, Florida Public Services Union, and this is our Get to Know the Candidate series. SEIU, FPSU members have a long history here in the city of St. Pete, going back to the 1960s. Today, we represent workers from the city of St. Pete, employees at Pinellas County School District and Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, and adjunct faculty from St. Pete College, among others. Our members are the beating heart of the community, getting our kids to school on a daily basis, keeping the city running from parks and recreation to the IT department, and educating the next generation. As a public sector union, we recognize the special relationship that elected officials play in representing the communities where our members work, live, and play. The St. Pete municipal elections will be held on November 2nd, and the only way to vote as of the recording of this video is by mail, and ballots have already started going out, or on election day, November 2nd, at your regular polling place. If you have any questions about the status of your voter registration or where to vote, go to votepinellas.com. We're proud to have endorsed Copley Gerdes for St. Pete City Council District 1. Copley is a business owner and a lifelong resident of St. Pete. Thank you for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me. The pleasure's mine.
Copley, you're a lifelong resident of St. Pete. Your family has been here for a long time. Take us back to some of your favorite memories growing up, spending a lot of time swimming and playing baseball at the Northwest Community Center.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick the favorite ones, to be honest with you, but I was really lucky to grow up really until going off to college in the district in which I'm trying to represent, would love to represent. And so, some of my favorite memories are something unique. My dad actually purchased the house we lived in growing up. He still lives in from his dad when I was 8 years old. So I actually got to grow up in the house that my dad got to grow up in. And so, being out in those streets, playing street football and roller hockey, and with the 20 kids that lived around in our neighborhood, within a block of where I was allowed to travel, that's certainly some of my favorite things. But, I spent a lot of time at Northwest at our rec center and baseball fields and swim pool. I've been a lifelong baseball player, lifelong swimmer. And so I spent a lot of my afternoons and evenings and mornings on those fields inside the district. And then, moving into high school at St. Pete Catholic, also inside of the district, because of involvement in baseball and swimming and drama and civic organizations, seemed like I was there from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the evening sometimes, most of the year at least. So, I couldn't imagine, frankly, growing up anywhere else because it's just so ingrained. And now raising my family there, creating memories on the West Side with my 4-year-old daughter and my 2-year-old son and my beautiful wife, Cecily, being able to recreate those memories with them. Just last night, we took them on a walk down the street looking at Halloween decorations. And I was just thinking to myself how lucky and blessed we are to be a couple of blocks away from where I grew up, but also with the opportunity to represent the place where I grew up too.
And that's a special thing to be able to keep as a family legacy and traditions, to kind of continue to live in the neighborhood where your father and now even your grandfather was living. And, that question of home ownership and affordability and livability in the city is something that's top of mind. But what do you think having those roots in the community really gives you, and why is that something that we should be able to have as an attainable dream for all the residents of St. Pete?
Yeah, it's an awesome question, and it's so appropriate, both for my family, frankly, and for the rest of the city. Again, going back to my family, I've got my dad in the district, 2 of my uncles in the district, 2 of my brothers in the district. We're community based, and when I think about my dad, both of my uncles, they live in homes that, frankly, they've lived in for quite a while now, and chances are they won't move from their homes, and they certainly couldn't do it today. Not that they want to, but they couldn't do it even if they want to, because of the affordable issue inside of St. Pete. And I think affordability really is a two-pronged approach. We've got to continue to increase stock in our city. We've got to continue to come up with unique and innovative ways to do that. Looking at, this new MTN1 zoning. We've got a new Florida statute that allows us to kind of streamline the process to build affordable housing. That's Florida Statute 1339. But then you've got, our corridors that we can build on. Specifically in District 1, we've got this Raytheon property that's going to have some affordable housing on it. Bear Creek is already in the process of starting to add some affordable housing. And we've got to continue to be super, super, super intentional about adding affordable housing stock all the way from 80% AMI to 120% AMI, not just focusing on one, across the entire city. We've got to be super intentional about that. We've got to use all the tools on the tool belt to do it. So adding stock is prong one. Prong two is we have to continue to fight to increase wages, to create a living wage, not only for our city employees and be the beacon, be the leader in our community, but by doing so, hoping that everybody else raises up as well, and hoping that economic driver, that living wage raises the entire city. And I think the very cool part about that is the city is leading in that. We've got to continue to look for partnerships with labor unions, because of them fostering a living wage and benefits and all of those things that come along with that, not just living for today, but living for tomorrow with a pension and things like that. We've got to continue to make sure that we're being intentional about a living wage inside of St. Pete, because we can create as much housing as we want to, but if people still can't afford it, it doesn't really matter. We've got to lift people up. We've got to invest in our human capital and continue to foster a living wage for our citizens.
Absolutely. And, all those things in many ways do come back to family, and, having a safe home to go back to at the end of the day, knowing that there's stability in that, allow having an opportunity for your kids to go to good schools and safe schools, and feeling that the community is not just a place where someone happens to be at the moment until they have to move someplace else, but someplace that they can put roots down in and really feel a sense of pride and ownership is just such a critical part for maintaining the character of St. Pete. And that's something that you care about a lot as well, is maintaining what it is that makes St. Pete a unique community.
Yeah, I think, I tell people all the time, we live in a little big town where we've got amazing places to eat and watch professional sports and go see amazing museums and all kinds of different arts throughout our city that, frankly, it would be a major metropolitan area that would have all of those things. But we've got this really cool, unique feel to St. Pete as well. And that's why I call it a little big town. I think we've got to continue to maintain that character. If you think about the economic driver that really brought us out of the recession back in 2008, 2009, it was our arts community. Our arts community and the museums here in St. Pete were the driver to bringing Beach Drive to what it is today. And no pun intended, but the renaissance of the Vinoy Hotel and things like that. And so we've got to continue to make sure we are investing in not only the development of St. Pete, but in the drivers that create the uniqueness of St. Pete, our small businesses, our arts community, our our labor workers, our service workers. Certainly in the St. Pete, hospitality is our biggest economic driver, and we have to continue to build that up. I think there's one other thing you said there, that importance of family. And when I was growing up here, a lot of times when you came back and let's say I came back after college and I was having dinner or something, and somebody asked you where you were from and you said from St. Pete, and you're like, oh, you're one of the few, right? You're one of the few that were born and raised here and are back. Now you say that, and it's significantly more people, and that's because they're proud of what St. Pete has created and what it is today. We've got to continue on that track, so we're attracting our families back here. That was the biggest reason I decided to run. Again, I've got a 4-year-old daughter, a 2-year-old son. I'm not going anywhere. I'm living in St. Pete the rest of my life. And so I want them to move back here because I don't want to travel to have to see my kids and hopefully one day their spouses and their kids, and this was a way to help keep this city on that track, on the track of being proud to live here, proud to move back here, and wanting to build in that community that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. And investing in the city of St. Pete is not just something that you see as a big goal for other people to do, but it's a way that you spend your own time and energy. You're on the board for the Police Athletic League. For those who aren't as familiar with PAL, the Police Athletic League, why don't you tell us a little bit about the organization and how you spent your time there?
Yeah, Police Athletic League is one of the most amazing things I've been able to be a part of. Super lucky to have been involved with them over the last 10 years, on their board for the last 3. And really what they're trying to create are healthy interactions for our youth with our community and our community police officers. And so it gives them a safe space to learn, to excel, to play sports. We even have a garden in the back of our PAL building to have these unique opportunities in a safe space with healthy, positive interaction with our police. Because what we need them to understand is that when you're growing up in this city, the police aren't a bad thing. They're a good thing. It's a positive relationship. We want it to be a positive relationship. And so, I've been at basketball games where my friend Dave Lopez, the Police Athletic League officer, has been shoulder to shoulder with our youth. And that has been the best interaction with somebody of a leadership position, not even only in the police force, but of a leadership position in the city, and they see that somebody cares, that it's more than just somebody trying to get them in trouble. And then what's awesome is Dave is a phenomenal basketball player. We actually went to high school together. That guy can ball. And so, then he gets out on the court and he plays with them. And they see a very different, that our officers are not only there just to be police, but they're other citizens in our city too. And that positive interaction creates the opportunity for them to understand that it's not an us versus them thing, that we're all in this together, and we're all building this community together, and there's positivity around that. And so safe place to be and to learn and to help foster that learning and that growth, both using your head and your heart. We've got a mental health program in place at PAL for our kids, talking about tough situations at home and kids being hungry. And then hopefully we can take those things. I can take those things that I've learned from PAL and bring them on to council and try to help fix them as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. Now, something that an initiative that you've started is a foundation to help families who are dealing with cancer, childhood cancer in particular, and also funding for research. And just in the last year is that you've raised more than about $240,000 towards supporting those families and the research and your goal in your lifetime is to see a cure to cancer. Tell us more about that work and how it got started for you.
Yeah, I'm complete transparency. I'm tearing up a little bit just hearing you talk about it. It's a passion project for my wife and I. 7 years ago, when we were just frankly just dating, my wife got a phone call from her cousin, who really was an older brother to her, and their 2-year-old daughter had been diagnosed with leukemia. And my wife, then girlfriend, turned to me and said, do you know how we can raise some money to try to help them? And the only thing I knew how to do was to host a golf tournament, because that's what I had done when I coached college baseball over a decade and a half ago. And so I said, you want me to throw a golf tournament? And she said, yeah, let's do that. Well, the first year we raised $23,000. And afterwards, after a grueling couple of weeks of putting this tournament together, and writing a check to McKinley, who our foundation is named after, for $23,000, we kind of looked at each other and said, should we keep doing this? This is something that people rallied around, young people rallied around it. And so we decided to create a foundation. And over the last 7 years, we've raised over $700,000 for pediatric cancer, supporting families dealing with it. So we do $5,000 grants directly to families. And then we try to do some extra gifts around Christmas time. So there's a little less pressure on families to be able to make sure that they can provide a happy and a hopeful Christmas. And then we do matching gifts to Johns Hopkins All Children's here in town directly. We get to point where the money goes directly related to child cancer research and finding a cure. And like you said, and I'm sure I'll get emotional about it, it's my big, hairy, audacious goal to find a cure for pediatric cancer in my lifetime. And hopefully we move the needle this year by raising $240,000. We're about to write a check to Johns Hopkins All Children's for $80,000 to help with research and a matching gift next week. And I'm just super excited to be a part of an organization that is focused on making an impact, especially in young people's lives, and super blessed to have been able to start that with my wife. And hopefully I'm blessed to shut that charity down one day. That's the goal. I want to hit the end button on sunbiz.org one day.
Mm-hmm. I think anybody who is engaged in anything, where the ultimate impact is in human lives and helping people, we do have that as a vision that someday we want to put ourselves out of a job. That's such a powerful thing to support the families who are going through it directly. So often we think of the challenges in the health aspect, and the doctors and the professionals, but often families are having to find a way to make ends meet. A parent has to be there with their child when they're going through those treatments. Have to travel in some cases, and cancer is something that has touched my life, and I'm sure many others. Not as just a thing that's happening to other people, but as like you said, this was somebody close to your family who was confronting that. But how did, that is it's tough. It takes a certain amount of, I think, just of toughness to really deal with that. How do you continue to bring, I guess, joy and keep people excited around confronting something that's that difficult?
Yeah. Again, Javan, you're doing a good job, because you're making me tear up a little bit. And so here's the deal. My family, I've been blessed to have 2 healthy children. I come from a household of 4 healthy boys, and we got lucky. We got lucky and we were blessed. But that doesn't mean that there's not an opportunity to share that blessing with other people and their families. And the joy really is making sure that we're making an impact. That's where the joy comes from. The joy comes from seeing, a lot of what we do is a lot of focus, what we do at the hospital is for the siblings of kids dealing with pediatric cancer, because often they're sitting in a waiting room waiting for, especially right now during COVID, they're waiting in a waiting room and they can't do anything. Can you imagine, you know, you're a 2-year-old, you're going through cancer, but your 5-year-old is sitting there wondering why they're sitting in a hospital all day long while the 2-year-old is going through treatment. Not only now as a parent are you worried about the 2-year-old, you're severely worried about the 5-year-old. They're not outside playing, they're not interacting with other kids because you're there at the hospital. And so, you know, we did an iPad initiative where we put it's called the Get Well Network on iPads that goes through children's hospitals, so kids can watch movies and they can play games, and they can actually play games with each other on different iPads. And so we did that iPad initiative at the hospital. We've got this big Vecta machine that's sensory and sounds and touch and feel for kids. They can play with the Vecta machine there, and so, you know, that watching that, you know, I get pictures every once in a while of somebody playing on an iPad or playing with the Vecta machine. That's where the joy comes from. The joy comes from for just a second, they stopped worrying about a cancer diagnosis, and in the midst of it all, we're able to focus on something else for just an instance. And to be very honest with you, and this is the first time I've shared on the campaign, you know, my family has dealt with that directly. My wife just got over a cancer diagnosis just 5 weeks ago, and she's cancer free now. But seeing the time impact on my children, understanding mom's got a boo-boo, you know, and then having to navigate that with our family, I couldn't imagine trying to navigate that with a child. And so trying to take that split second and create an environment that you're not focused on a cancer diagnosis, you're focused on the love you have for your family and those around you. And that's what we're trying to create. We're trying to create to where parents don't have to worry about the split second. They've got an entirety because they're not worried about childhood cancer anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is awesome. We certainly wish you and your organization well as you continue to raise funds and support families and support the research to make a difference and a significant difference, not just for the siblings, the parents, everybody involved in confronting what is one of the more challenging points in life. You're also involved in business. You work for Northwestern Mutual, working with the business community often, individuals as well, I imagine. And a lot of times we, kind of have this kind of for or against, or, it's business owner, the priorities of business owners versus the common everyday people. You've managed to kind of overlap that work and still overlap those two areas. You won $20,000 from Northwestern Mutual to support your initiative around cancer and whatnot. You also continue to just have that mindset that St. Pete is a city for everybody, and not just the well-heeled and the business-minded folks of the community. How did those things come together for you, where you can see that this is a community that has space for everybody and needs space for everybody?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And, I think one of the unique things about, what I do, being a financial advisor, having run my own practice for 10 years, and I'll poke fun at you a little bit. I don't work for Northwestern Mutual. I work with them.
Okay.
I get to work for me, but that's where that unique mindset comes from, is understanding that not everybody is made to be a business owner, first and foremost, right? Not everybody's made to be an employee either, but there are opportunities, and there need to continue to be opportunities for everyone across our city. And I think the unique, where my viewpoint comes from, is being able to work with both business owners and individuals, being able to work with teachers who I really grew my practice. That's how I started my practice, was working with teachers. And understanding their pension and how that was going to work in the future. And then, growing as a business owner and working now with businesses and I don't know that I'd call it executives, but kind of frontline leaders in offices across the city, understanding that we've got to create opportunity for both. And so by helping businesses be efficient, create living wages, give good benefits that retain good employees, that then empowers those employees to feel like they are part of this community. They're not just going to work, earning a paycheck. They feel empowered inside of that business. And that's what we try to do as a business, is empower our clients to feel that way. And so I think that's where that uniqueness comes from, that again, going back to, it's not an us versus them. It's that all of the business owners in this city and across America need employees. All the employees need business owners to create those opportunities to go and be an employee. We've just got to continue to foster those relationships to again, lead from the front from a living wage and a benefits standpoint, especially when it comes to the city and its contracting with labor unions and developers and things like that. When we're doing that, and all of a sudden now, let's say you're an employee at a welding union, you're building something on brand new truck site. You help build that. You help build the future of St. Petersburg. You need to be a business owner to do that. And that's what we've got to get people to get excited about and buy in. And then we've got to continue to create the opportunity for them to get excited too.
Creating those opportunities is one of the things that I'm sure you have an opportunity to touch on. You're chair of the Community Planning and Preservation Committee, which I guess is taking that long look at what's coming in the city of St. Pete, whether that's in the trop, the affordable housing, other developments, but also preserving the unique character of the city, deciding what kinds of buildings and what places should be held onto, or how do we maintain those unique elements in St. Pete. What are you learning in that role with community planning and preservation?
A lot. Here's one of the best examples I can tell you is where we need to continue to be intentional and put our focus. I was at the Democratic Black Caucus forum last night, and there was a question about on 9th Street South, 16th Street South, 22nd Street South, that because of an ordinance in the city of St. Pete, you couldn't open a restaurant or bar and sell alcohol within 400 feet of a church. Well, if you're on 9th Street South, 16th Street South, or 22nd Street South, you could throw a rock pretty much in any direction and hit a church. And so you are really putting a cap on the type of business that could be opened on those corridors because of this old ordinance. And so what we need to continue to do is look at those types of things, making sure that, we don't have an ordinance that's really made for the west side of town, keeping people on the south side of town out of certain business ventures because of an old, now dated ordinance. I think is really where we need to continue to make sure that we're helping foster those opportunities that we were talking about, rather than tamping them down with old and out of date ordinances that no longer really have a place in this city. And so we've got to spend our time, and I've been able to see that on the Community Planning and Preservation Committee and help make some of those changes. That's been super exciting to have kind of your fingerprint on some of those. And so I'm looking forward to making that shift to City Council to make an even bigger and better impact on creating those opportunities and making sure that we're not putting a ceiling on them for anybody across this city.
And that speaks directly to growing smart and maintaining the character of St. Pete. And that's something that you see as critical to the environment and the infrastructure in the city as well. Sustainability and especially mitigation. We see longer, hotter summers, more rainfall. the risk from hurricanes is not only just increasing for everybody, who lives on the Gulf or East Coast, but for especially in St. Pete, where, it's a coastal community. There's water on three sides. How do you plan to thread that needle between, encouraging the investment that it takes? Because at the end of the day, it's going to take a lot of money to do that kind of mitigation and environmental protection. And, those who would rather see those dollars spent elsewhere. How do you make that argument that this is the thing to invest in?
Well, if we don't, here's the just pure science and fact. If we don't invest in it, then this community will not last past the next 50 years. I mean, we've had the Corps of Engineers here at the city talking about water rise. If we don't invest in our resiliency and our sustainability, then we're not going to have a big portion of this city to visit anymore because it's going to be underwater. The second part of that is I think that's why my background in finance and understanding budgets and debt to income ratio and risk helped me go to work on day one on issues like this, and being able to find a balance between how do we take money from the budget and attack some of these things while also taking on debt as a city and making sure that we're improving our city with capital projects. But I think some of the things we're already doing, we've certainly got to continue with our water resources master plan. We've got to make sure that we're continuing to track on that, making the investment in our infrastructure, in our stormwater, our sewer water. That's first and foremost. Second is we've got to continue to work with FDOT and the state and federal, hoping some of this, the infrastructure bill that I hope gets passed, investing in our roads and our sidewalks and our bridges, making sure that we've kind of caught up with times. Those are the first two big things. The second is we've made a commitment to go carbon neutral. We've got to make sure that we're tracking on pace for that, if not beforehand. Making sure that leading from the front, making sure that our city buildings are operating efficiently. Looking at solar panels on the top of certain different city buildings, going to power efficient lights. And so making sure we're leading from the front so we can kind of trailblaze for other businesses throughout the city to do the same thing. And so we've got a lot of work to do in that area. You're right, it's going to take a significant investment. I hope my financial background helps us balance that investment with money we have today compared to money we're going to need tomorrow. But I'm super excited to help tackle that because we've got a beautiful community, and I know we don't want to lose it, and we've got to work hard to keep it that way.
Absolutely. And it is certainly going to take a lot of work. You have the advantage that your father served on city council. Charles Gerdes was there for 2 terms starting in 2010. Have you had a chance to catch up with your dad about what you can expect when you get there?
Just about every day. I got, at the beginning, before deciding to run, I got the warning on what it would be. Now it's the, hey, here's what it could be. And so we talk every day. I'm super blessed to have my dad in my corner and in my ear. Sometimes it's a little like the 12-year-old that made the error on the baseball game on the way home. But, what I'll tell you is there aren't very many people that I've met that have a true passion and a love for the city like my dad does. I hope I can live up to that. But I'm also excited to bring a unique perspective, different than my dad's, to city council, but with a lot of love and emotion and transparency that he brought as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, District 1, has a lot of different things going on. What do you hope to bring to that district, given the opportunity to serve?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of big things specifically to District 1. One, going back to affordable housing, District 1 has the least amount of affordable housing in all of the districts in the city. So making sure that we don't have that title is paramount to me. We've got to continue to work hard and build the affordable housing stock, and also keep people in their homes that are already there, making sure that they don't have to move because of a lack of affordability. And so certainly affordable housing in District 1 is a priority, because we shouldn't be at the bottom of that list for sure, because we've got a lot of open area to be able to work with in District 1. So I think a lot of these new zoning changes will help us, and excited to be a part of that. 2 is that commercial property that I was talking about. You've got a Raytheon property, some old commercial properties near Park and Tyrone Boulevard. We've got some empty parcels kind of in the middle of the district near Park Boulevard and 66, or excuse me, Tyrone Boulevard and 66. And so fostering our small business community on the west side is certainly something I'm excited about. Being a small business owner, understanding some of the nuances of being a small business owner, and bringing that to the west side. I think along with that, the Central Avenue corridor that takes you from 58th down to the beaches is something that I think could really invigorate itself, like in the Grand Central District or in the Edge District has in downtown. Seeing that vibrant walkability, bikeability, small business culture on Central Avenue on the way to the beaches is something that I think could really be a gem on the west side of St. Pete.
And of course, this election now goes citywide. And that's one of the unique features of the St. Pete municipal elections, is that it starts off very much in your district, and then all residents in the city have an opportunity to cast a ballot for you. What do you see in other parts of the city as things to uplift or even challenges to be addressed?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the challenges are kind of citywide, right? Affordable housing, infrastructure, environment. I think a couple of unique ones obviously are the Trop property. The Trop property for redevelopment, whether it's 2 years from now or 7 years from now, making sure we're being intentional that it's a redevelopment for the entire city, not for just downtown. I think that's what we want to make sure that we are communicating to our city, and that's what we create. We're going to need to be super intentional about that, because we don't just need another downtown gem. We need to create something that's available and connectable citywide. Some of the other things I hear about are the lease of the city marina, continuing to foster small businesses inside of downtown, making sure that they don't get pushed out because of rent increases, and you see chain stores come in rather than our small business community here in downtown St. Pete. And so, and then certainly making sure that we're continuing to lift up our south side of St. Pete and really catch up, because we haven't been as intentional as we should have with investing in our citizens on the south side of St. Pete. We've got to continue to invest in the CRA in the south side of St. Pete, and continue to foster our citizens, that human capital that I was talking about. There's a preschool teacher shortage on the south side of St. Pete. There's a preschool shortage. And so that causes all types of issues, right? First issue is parent can't drop their kid off at age 3 or 4 to get to work. So now all of a sudden you're working less. So you're making less. And then you've got this living wage problem, right? On the other side of that, which a lot of people don't think about, is now your kid isn't going to school at VPK or 3 years old, and they're behind when they go into kindergarten. So before they've even started, they're behind the 8 ball. And so it's things like that where we've really got to get intentional and make sure that we're focusing and lifting up our entire city, especially the south side.
Outstanding. Yeah, that 0 to 5 is the most important time, 0 to 3 in a child's life, where they're learning as much as possible. And, families need those kinds of options so they can continue, so they can support the health and development of their kids, and, of course, have good employment and maintain, the quality of life and build that for themselves as well. So our final question, if there is one thing that you could achieve as city council member, whether that's in your district or just in the city at large, what would it be?
Wow. One thing, that's tough. Um, I think on the west side of St. Pete, District 1, I would pick leading from the front on affordable housing. My business mindset tells me to lean towards Central Avenue, but from a district-wide standpoint, we have to have more affordable housing stock, and we shouldn't be at the bottom of the list of 8 districts. We should be at the top. And so really moving the needle when it comes to affordable housing in the district, I would tell you, would be my number one priority. I'll give you another one citywide, and that's really to continue to make sure that we're investing in our infrastructure citywide to on the stormwater water resources master plan, and our roads and our bridges and our sidewalks, making sure that we're investing in the infrastructure, because that's what's going to create the ability to continue to invest in our resiliency, making sure that our waterways work, our sewage works, our roads are safe, they're built up. That enables us then to go and work on all the other resiliency issues. If we don't have that right, nothing else really matters, because the water is going to come up from the ground. We're not going to have to worry about water coming up from the sea. And so really making sure that we stay on track for that, that we do it with both a thought process of what are we spending today, what are we going to spend tomorrow, so we're doing it responsibly. If I could come out of council, this is a 2-year term, then you'll have 2 4-year terms available afterwards, whether it was 2, 6, or 10 years from now, and we really either kept up the needle or we really moved the needle on infrastructure, I'd be super proud of that, of the city.
Copley, thank you for taking some time to speak with us and let our members and all those watching know a bit more about yourself and your hopes and ambitions for serving the city of St. Pete. I just want to remind everyone again that Election Day is November 2nd. If you have your mail-in ballot already, please make sure you complete that and get it turned in as soon as possible. And in addition to voting for Copley Gerdes for District 1, please also vote for Ken Welch for mayor, Lissette Hanowitz in District 4, and Richie Floyd in District 8.